So I went back to the meeting again. I kept my original character, which was a young, impressionable, earnest Bible student. And that's the character that I was playing while talking to a few of the brothers there. I was actually able to record and collect some video of me just having a conversation with them about some things that supposedly bothered me and kept me from being a witness. I think you'll enjoy the exchange. Just a couple of questions that I have. And like if I could just connect with a couple of brothers, because if I'm being completely honest, the questions that I have are not really all that well answered on the website. If you didn't mind, is that in the library there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, can I look? Can I just look at the library?
Sure.
That'd be awesome.
But,
Really cool.
yeah, I mean, what's interesting is, I mean, that's what you have. You have the watchtowers.
Right. Those are the
bound volumes. Right?
bound volumes, right?
Weights. You have your insight books, okay, which give explanation to a lot of individuals, events, and such in the Bible.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot like how I remember. I really, man, I would pay money for some of these books. Like, I really love.
But you can download
some of you can. I know, but man, having the book, you know what I mean? It's just, gosh, and everything's online now and digital, and I don't know. But I don't know. Can you actually order any of the books?
Mm-hmm.
Like from what, jw.org, or do you have to go like on Amazon or something like that?
You can get through the congregation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyways, I don't know. Is there any way that we could just have a little chat? All right, I really appreciate it. I mean, do we need to do it here or?
When's a good time to do something like that for you?
Well, I don't have a whole lot of time, and I'm not talking about because I know your meeting starts in 30 minutes or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I came early because I didn't want to disturb the meeting or anything. I don't want to disturb anybody. You know what I mean? Just the biggest thing, man. I tell you,
grab that door, Josh.
Just the biggest thing for me. And see, I have friends and family still. I have friends and family still in my old congregation that probably don't even know that I don't identify as one anymore. And really,
so you were never baptized?
I was baptized. I was baptized. Yes, sir.
Okay.
How
old were you?
I was 11.
Oh.
So I was pretty young.
Yeah.
One of this thing with the generation, I've seen like the explanation of the overlapping generation thing that they're doing now. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I've seen it on the jw.org, and I just can't wrap my head around it, man, because it just seems like they were so sure of one thing, and a lot of people died believing that thing, and now it means two different generations or an overlapping generation, and I just don't see the scriptural backing for it, man. Like that is a huge problem that I'm having. Am I completely crazy here, basically?
I get excited over refinements because, have you ever, let's see, what was one that really was, The Faithful Slave? Mm-hmm. I thought that was an awesome refinement. Yeah. But at the end of the day, did it really change how I view Jehovah as a God? No. It did imbue confidence in me, in his organization that would continue. Here we are with, you watch the events in the world, and it's just bad.
It is.
You know Jehovah's not going to withhold his justice in rectifying it and in cleaning it up so that we can have a world that we desire to live in.
Where I struggled the most with wrapping my head around what you're saying, because that part seems to line up. We see world events, we see things going bad, you know what I mean? And a lot of other religions think something's coming too. But the thing is just like some of the kind of I guess it's the policies, if you know what I'm saying. When they changed their thinking on this whole generation thing, how many brothers before that happened, before they changed their thinking, had that same thought, but they weren't necessarily allowed to adjust their thinking because the governing body had not yet done so. You see what I'm saying?
Well, Jehovah reveals in a progressive way as the light gets brighter and brighter. It's like Daniel. Daniel wrote down things that he didn't have a clue what he was writing down scripturally, and they were going to be fulfilled in our day. Because he didn't understand it, didn't mean he didn't believe it was true.
Right.
So he dutifully wrote down prophecy that only were revealed in our day, which is really exciting. But does it? Let me ask you this: when you look back, when did you just progressively, I don't know, just stop going to the Kingdom Hall? How old were you?
I was probably, it was before adulthood, definitely. Maybe 18, 19 years old.
Because your mom and dad became inactive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, it really sounds much like my life. My
Mm-hmm.
parents became inactive when I was a young person, and I was off.
Mm-hmm.
Just live the life out there.
Right.
And but I also recognized clearly that world events were changing. I knew enough about the Bible. I didn't know. I said to myself, I don't know if Jehovah's going to accept my worship. I hope that he does.
Mm.
I said, because I had just gone in another direction. But I said, you know what? I'm going to go back. I'm going to study the Bible, and I did. And the more I studied, the more I came to learn about Jehovah. It's this is the truth. I'm being introduced to the God of the Bible. There's not a religion under the sun that introduces us to Jehovah as a personality. They want us to believe that he's some distant figure that we can't come to know and that we don't understand. The Bible doesn't.
But don't you feel that there's room for alternative opinions on just exactly what certain scriptures may mean, especially given the fact that the governing body changes their opinions pretty frequently? Wasn't there a recent convention I saw on the broadcasting where they've changed their mind on um, the exile, the Babylonian exile? Yeah, are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that
Now,
was the annual meeting
right.
just on the broadcast.
Yeah, so instead of, you know, us thinking that they were exiled in 1918 or whatever it was, they decided that they weren't supposed to be punished, that they were faithful Christians, and so the real greater fulfillment of that exile must have happened in the 2nd century, after Jesus died and after the apostles died, I think is what they said. But like, just it's a general gist. I forgive me, I don't have it in front of me, but they changed their thinking on that. Basically, the question is, what makes them, the governing body, was it 6 or 7 of them? What makes them able to do so as opposed to, say, the earnest Bible student, to have an alternate thinking, a different opinion? You know?
Well, when you talk about things like that, and um, you say things like they decided that this was what it was going to be, the governing body decided that this is what the thinking was, or they decided that this is what the prophecy means. I don't think we're really looking at it the right way. I think we're looking at it as the governing body realized what's in line with Jehovah's thinking, and as the appointed channel of spiritual food, they disperse that to the household of faith. And when you say, what allows them to have an opinion and change it, and why can't an earnest Bible student like yourself feel the same way? Jehovah's always been an organizational God, from the days of Israel down to our day. And, it's in line with what Paul said, that we should be fitly united in the oneness of thought.
So it's more a matter of keeping everybody on the same page. Is that kind of the gist of what you're saying? Like, in other words,
Well, when the decision for circumcision was handed down, remember in the Book of Acts,
mm-hmm.
and there had to be a decision made, right? And so those older men, those faithful men, those ones who were selected, they made a decision, handed it down, and there it was. So somebody had to make that decision. So Jesus is using faithful men on the earth today to take the lead in the organization. Now, when you think about what had to be foremost accomplished, what did Jesus do when he was on the earth? You know, he
Mm-hmm.
was known to be a teacher, preacher, and he highlighted the kingdom, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so he highlighted the kingdom, and then he trained his apostles to do the same. And then that they went on and they trained, and then congregations are formed, but they had a purpose, and it was to preach. So the congregation was set up in that way. So, like Josh was saying, it has to be organized because there's a work being done.
But I feel like there's still so much room for open discussion, even with the organizations you're talking about. Be like, okay, so this is the doctrines as we've laid down, you know. But couldn't there be a portion of the meeting where it's just discussion, just like a free flow of thought, just discussing the Bible, this is what this makes me think of, you know what I mean? I mean, yeah, you do have the question and answer parts,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very scripted. You've got the questions are pre-prepared, the answers are pre-prepared, they put it in their own words, maybe throw in an experience, but I'm talking like, this scripture, what I was thinking on this, and then, if people want to disagree with you, that's fine. But I just don't see the harm in that. And it would make, because I got to be honest with you, people think Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because it is very structured. It's almost controlling. Like, I'm hoping I'm not offending you. But
No.
it is very rigid, man. It is. And like in this day and age, and they are making dramatic changes. I see it. I really wish that there was more of an exchange and it wasn't just seven guys who are wrong a lot be handing down all the information. Does that make sense at all? Like,
It's nothing we haven't heard before. Two thoughts to that. Number one, um, Jesus said Jesus said that the spiritual food comes from where?
from Jesus?
From the faithful and discreet slave, who the master is appointed. The master is Jesus. He controls the congregation. He's appointed the faithful and discreet slave. That's prophesied. So for us to dispense spiritual food on our own to a congregation in a free discussion like what you're talking about really goes against that
Well, a
arrangement.
discussion is not dispensing spiritual food, man. The discussion is, I mean, you guys sit around and talk about the Bible in your own homes. You talk about it to strangers, and a lot of times it's not scripted. It's just you talking. You know what I mean? But it seems like when you get within these doors, the official channel has to have the official message, and it's just like, and it's not always the same. It changes. You know what I mean? And that to me, and look, the governing body does not claim to be prophets. The fact that if they're not prophets, then they're not like Moses. A lot of times I remember the example coming up how Korah murmured against Moses, and you know what happened to him. But Moses was a prophet. He was the chosen channel of God. He was marked. Everyone knew. It had been proven miraculously that this boy was God's homie. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's a completely different situation. The Jehovah's Witnesses, the governing body, they do not claim to be prophets. Therefore, why is it that when you question them at all, and I've seen it, like this is why I don't come around, because I don't want to be like attacked or anything, because I have varying opinions and different ideas. And when you have that in the Jehovah's Witness organization, I've noticed that it doesn't fly very, very, very long. For them not to be prophets, that's just too much, especially when considering that you could lose your friends and family over what the Jehovah's Witnesses decide about you, basically.
We all have free will, right?
Yeah.
So we can choose to serve God or not serve God. A person can decide, I want to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. but not everybody gets to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. So when you think about it this way, we knock on people's doors and we show them in the Bible the truth of the Bible, introduce them to Jehovah. But at the end of the day, a person has to qualify. Remember the old commercial with the maybe before you. Remember the old Fruit of the Looms
Why'd you
commercial?
turn to me?
I don't know why.
Okay.
But the Fruit of the Looms commercial, I have to laugh. It says the quality goes in before the name goes on. Okay, it was an old commercial. So basically, when a person measures up, when they continue to apply Bible counsel and to make adjustments according to the Bible, well now they're being viewed in God's eyes as approved by Him.
Unfortunately, I ran out of space on my phone again, but the other thing that was said that I wanted to share with you, which kind of took me by surprise, he asked me who was behind the governing body, to which I said, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Is it really, because you want me to say Jehovah is behind the governing body, but is that really the case? Because if, I said, I can't believe that God would give people a flawed message. And he said, well, Jehovah uses imperfect men. I said, yes, but the message should be perfect. But instead, what you have is continual doctrine changes, continual changing in what they believe, new light. I said, I just can't believe that God would continually stumble his followers by giving them a flawed message, instead of giving them the correct one right from the beginning. And I wish, God, I wish it recorded, because there was a good 2 minutes of absolute silence. They had nothing to say to that. Their mouths were agape. I swear it was the most beautiful thing. And the comeback, you know what they shot back with? And you're going to love this. The hefty brother, he says, well, there's a precedence for that too. He says, Jesus stumbled people too. And I go, what? He says, yeah, Jesus stumbled people too. When he said that this bread means my flesh and the wine means my blood, it stumbled people. They thought he was talking about cannibalism. Of course he wasn't. So the only retort that they had to the line of reasoning that I had come to is that Jehovah's Witnesses may have stumbled some of Jehovah's followers in the past, but that's okay because Jesus did too. First of all, the bread and the wine thing was a metaphor, okay? And anyone who took him literally on that, well, they were probably pretty dumb to begin with. Second of all, Jesus could say whatever he wanted to. There was never going to be a revision of what Jesus said, because Jesus, when he spoke, he got it right the first time. There was no revision. There was no light getting brighter. So to even suggest that that was an excuse for why the Jehovah's Witnesses and the governing body are continually wrong time and time again is weak. Very, very weak. You gotta love that fruit of the loom logic.